I don't have him. I don't know how to contact him.
Just tell him to look at the messages. One call from Greg.
Well, I don't know how to contact him.
He's in the chat.
Oh, he's in the chat.
Put it in the chat.
Well, if he's in the chat,
He should be on.
So if I mute myself now, I can unmute myself
all right,
later,
he's on.
right?
Yeah, I think so.
Few more stragglers coming in.
Give a little ambiance to it.
Do I need to straighten up anything?
Okay. It's May 5th at 6:03. I'd like to call the meeting to order. So the roll call, please say that you're here. Randy Vaughn,
Here.
Jan Welch. Can we can you be unmuted, Jan, or you want to stay muted? Okay, you're here. Tracy Smiley. Raise
They're
your
all
hand.
muted.
Tom Deeds.
Here,
There.
Here.
Tim Fritz.
Here.
And
Here,
okay, that's all seven of us. And Chris Conti.
here,
Okay, so first order of business, Randy, is approval of the minutes.
Yes, I would like the board to approve the minutes of April 14th, which were sent over to you folks by email over the weekend.
I so move.
Been seconded by Jan Welch. Any discussion? No discussion, call the question. All those in favor of approving the minutes for April 14th? Jan, okay. We have all seven. Okay. So the next order of business would be the new business. Apologies, it says announcement. It really is a mixture of old and new business. One is Randy, could you do an update on the partition action?
Okay. We have received, as of today anyway, we've received 104 consent forms, people wanting to join the partition action as plaintiffs. That number could change slightly. It doesn't take into account electronic applications that might have been received this afternoon. Also, that box in the lobby was emptied earlier today. If anybody puts something in very late in the afternoon, we don't have that yet, but we would get those before we move forward. Our next step, we will probably tomorrow, we will contact the lawyers and ask them to initiate the actual partition action with the court. Not sure exactly how long that will take them to do that, but that should happen within the next few days. So we'll get this underway. Any particular questions on that? Or?
Questions from the board first? Seeing none, any questions from the owners? Yeah, again, if you could raise your electronic hand, that makes it easy to see. Did you have a question? I only see about 20 of the participants. No questions? All right. The next item, again, is Randy, is the petition for sale of the building.
Okay. We're going to ask all the owners to fill out or sign another form separate for now. Keep these separate in your mind, okay? The partition action is one thing. That's going to be going in the next day or two, okay? All right. We just sit back and let that go for a while. But now we would like to focus on selling the building outright, selling it directly to a buyer, not, not in a petition action through the court. To do that, it would require 100% of all owners to sign off on this, to approve it. Our lawyer, Isaac, is putting together a document for everyone to sign that would authorize the board to sell the building. Now, to get 180 people to sign these things, we haven't quite figured it out. I don't know if we will do the same thing as we did with consent forms and send those out through the mail. The exact procedure is not yet has not yet been determined, but you could expect sometime in the next days, maybe a week, to get more information on this, either by one call or through the mail, about signing this. I don't know why you wouldn't sign it. If I can put in a a campaign plug there. If we have a strong offer to buy the building, it only makes sense to go that way with it rather than to go to a sheriff's auction, which is what the partition action would do. It would be much faster. It still would be months likely. And again, we need to look in, do all liens need to be cleared? Do all deeds need to be clear and all that kind of thing, all 180 of them? So there's a lot of unknowns by us, but we would have to check that. We've been working on the partition action at this point. So to get the exact details, we're getting those. We will get those to you as soon as we know. But a lot of people have suggested that we look into a direct sale of the building, and that's what we're going to be doing. So you can expect, now that the partition action is kind of being authorized and getting started, it'll carry a momentum of its own. We will now focus on getting a direct sale, either through a broker or if we have an offer directly that way. I think I muddled through that, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to say there.
Tim?
There are a couple questions in chat, Randy. One of them
Okay.
is, what is the offer? The answer to that is not, there is not the offer. This is in anticipation of turning the building over to a broker and marketing it the same way that you do a typical commercial real estate transaction. There is an offer out there, but that's part of what has encouraged us to try to go this way, is because the offer is higher than what the appraisal was from Colliers. The second question is, how do the ongoing legal actions against the association impact our ability to sell via a direct sale? However we sell the building, all that stuff has to be cleaned up. Whether we do a direct sale or whether we do a sale through the partition agreement, all the legal issues, the liens have to be taken off, the deeds have to be cleaned. We don't have a good feel for that right now. We are in the midst of having title searches done, and the title searches are starting to come back. So in a couple of weeks, we should have a better feel for where we are in terms of titles to all the units in the building.
Let me also add that a conversation I had with Isaac, that if there are any bankruptcies, that then he has to go to the bankruptcy court to get the bankruptcy court to agree that they would agree to be part of 100%. So he says we can do it, but it's not necessarily going to be easy to do. The other one, as Tim says, no matter how we sell it, there are certain things are going to happen. And we probably are going to be asked to produce a deed for every owner for a buyer to really complete the whole sale. So it's not a simple process. At the same time, It is painful to pay the fees when you're not living in the condo. And we have to do everything we can to try to shorten that process. So, other questions from the board or comments? Okay, any owners want to have any comments, questions about the, where we are about petition for sale of the building? Steve Kaufman.
Yeah, thank you. I think we all probably realize, although Randy apparently doesn't, that getting all 180 people to sign is going to be very close to being impossible. Nonetheless, it's certainly worth doing if we have to do it, of course. But isn't I think we really need to consult another attorney to see if there's not some way that the bylaws could be changed with less than 100 people to allow the sale to go on. Has that been investigated?
I would have to double check that, but that it might be Ohio Revised Code comes into play there,
Yes.
and there's nothing we can do about that.
That was Julie's answer when the same question was asked last week. Was it it's partly bylaws and partly Ohio Revised Code?
And actually, on a number of points, the bylaws and declarations, word for word, reflect what the Ohio Code says. So if you look at 12.5 that we're dealing with in terms of the vote not to rebuild or signing the partition agreement, those are word for word what's in Ohio Code.
Okay.
I wish it was true.
Right.
So I think Randy understands the dynamic. We all understand those dynamics.
Steve, we don't underestimate the difficulty of this process, but the potential savings in time and money is too large not to pursue it.
Any other questions?
I just want to make a comment about that to Tim and Randy's point is we've been getting a lot of feedback and communications from the owners regarding the HOA fees and trying to find ways to reduce the cost because people are, literally filing bankrupt. So again, I'm going to plead to all 180 owners to sign for the sale direct because if individuals keep paying this, all we're doing is hurting all the other owners out of, spite of litigation, out of, who's right and who's wrong. I see comments, I see emails, and at this point, we have gone past, individual issues and, internal fighting in the community. We have gotten to the point where we can no longer afford to live here. None of us. So I encourage everyone to sign to do this broker sale versus waiting 2 years to get through the partition sale. Then there will be no money left to even hand out to the owners. So I encourage everyone to set aside their emotional feelings about who said what and who did what and move forward so everyone can move on.
There's a question in the chat that says compare the timelines for the commercial sale versus the partition sale. And that's the point of the matter is Isaac and Julie are pretty convinced that the partition sale could take up to 2 years. And we feel like we could do a commercial sale in considerably less time than that.
And I agree with that, but we should know that considerably less time is not going to be 3 months.
Right.
It's going to take some time and work to do it.
Right.
So Linda, you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if, because we do need to get this sold, like, what about if we had a committee, like maybe of like 50 people? Well, it doesn't even have to be that many. But I was thinking like at 50 people, if they got 4 signatures, we could get that 180 signatures done quickly. So I'm just throwing that out there as just to maybe some of us can step up and help to get this done. And if anybody else has any other ideas.
Tim?
I guess, I am optimistic based on the first vote that we had, where we had between 145 and 150 people participate. And we know that there were a number of people who intentionally didn't participate in that first vote. So I'm optimistic that we can get up to 150 to 160 people to participate right off the bat. But then, Linda, your point is valid. Then what we need to do is we need to figure out who those last 25 or 30 people are, and we will get assignments to get after those people.
And later in the meeting, I think we'll talk about other things that we may, or in the future, we may need another vote for. It could be complicated running more than one vote at one time. And we welcome owners volunteering to form on a committee to say how we can organize that and how we can, any remaining people who haven't signed, how we can try to convince them to sign. Any other questions? Okay, let's move on. The next item, Tracy, is the financial situation. And as I said earlier, we all know it is a painful situation to continue to pay the fees, given the state that everybody has to get out, and in fact, get out as rapidly as possible. And let me just allow Tracy to share, and I think she has some PowerPoints.
John, did you record this?
Yes. You should have a little YouTube icon at the top right.
Got it.
Can everyone see my screen? It's a PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, perfect. So what I wanted to go through today is I wanted to share the financial status of where we are as of March 2025. We will be getting some of the details for the April financial results over the next couple weeks, but I wanted to at least share this. So the top section here is income, which are the HOA fees. I've shared here what the actual budget should be on a monthly basis, which should be about $273,732,000 per month. What we've received compared to budget, you'll see this line item here, is we were short 20,000 in January, 31,000 to budget in February, and 43,000 under what we expected for March. So I wanted to show that how we're off on budget of $95,000 thus far for 2025. And as you look at the run rate for the month over month fees, you can see that it's declining month over month. So from December to January, it went down $35.95. From January to February, another 10,000. From February to March, another 12,000. So I just wanted to share with everyone, the financial state of where we are with HOAs. We do understand that owners are struggling to pay these fees. And so again, I implore everyone on this call, and if you know of any owners that are not on the call, is to sign the faster path to sell the building due to the income decreasing as well. Here at the bottom left are the delinquencies. We do have a report that just came out today. I will share that with you guys next time we meet. But as you can see, the outstanding balances continue to grow. There was a huge spike in March into April with those delinquencies. Again, no matter, which path we go down, whether it's the partition or whether it's the faster broker sale, these delinquencies will come out of the funds that each owner will receive. So again, I implore everyone to continue to finance as much as they possibly can the operating expenses of the building. But you can see where it's trending thus far. On the side here on the right, I wanted to share the March operating expenses. You'll see the orange lettering here. That is a subcategory of what's in black. So I wanted to share this because on the next slide, we're going to look at some potential opportunities to reduce some of these expenses. We've been hearing over the past couple of weeks, what can we do? What can we do? And I'm going to basically share a reality of where we are with that and some of the work that the Finance Committee has done, particularly this last meeting that we had. So from a utilities perspective, we spend about $25,000 per month on utilities. Gas and electric is about $15,000, and this is mainly the common areas. We expect that to go down and decrease over time due to the occupancy in the building. TV and cable is about $10,866 per month. Greg is working to review the contract and possibly figure out a way to decrease that bulk account, but it is under contract, and we're hoping Greg will work his magic and help us figure out something around that. So building maintenance is about $34,000 per month. What makes up that maintenance line item is we have security. So we're going to be sharing some opportunities to reduce costs there, keeping in mind some of the safety considerations that we have to look at. We have plumbing repairs. We talked about trash removal. I believe we've acted on the trash removal and have less frequent pickups. And then there is HVAC repairs for about $39-34 per month. Ground care is a small number of the operating expenses of $3,921. I know that Randy and Greg has already worked to reduce that contract as well. And then the administrative costs is about $114,000. What makes up that expense is a legal expense. So in the month of March, there was very minimal expense of $4,862, but I will share that year to date, we have spent $267,000 and $121 year to date in legal expenses. Admin payroll is about $36,000 a month. We are reviewing that as under consideration of possible expense opportunities. And then insurance for the building is $66,202 every single month. We know that this is coming up for renewal, so we're keeping an eye on that. So these are the main operating expense areas that we incur each month. And then when you look at what was actually paid in March from HOA fees versus the $178,619, our operating net was about $63,845 for the month of March. On this next slide, I wanted to share here the repair costs and the city requirement costs that we are incurring. As of right now, we have about $1.5 million outstanding bills with TRS final payments of $463. Hunt final payments of $1 million and 35754, and Finney Law Firm of $27,389. So this is as of April 15th of 1.526411 are the outstanding repair cost bills, which are final payments, and the work that Finney Law Firm has done for us thus far. Which is like very inexpensive considering our previous legal team. Down here for the additional costs that we incurred for not to repair the building, there are a couple of things we still need to do, such as we need to remove the hoist outside. I don't think we've gotten back an estimate on that as of yet. There was a couple of equipment items that were ordered previous to the vote to not to repair the building. So we're waiting to see what that is. And then we have the balcony handrail reinstalls that needs to happen on the 9th floor and above. I believe there is an estimate out there not to exceed $15,000. Because we also want to make sure for this line item that if any owner wants to re-enter their unit, that is safe and secure for them to even get, you know, property off of the balconies. So that is definitely a safety issue. Down at the bottom is a run rate of the reserves paid by insurance. So as of January, and I believe you guys have seen this already, there's about $4.2 million in reserve. Then it dropped to 4.1 million. At the end of March, it was 2.6 million. And then as of right now, the reserves are at $156,000, 211. As you can see, there is not enough in reserves right now to pay this 1.5 million up here in outstanding bills. So what we are doing is the board has worked with Hunt and Total Restoration and Finney for that matter to let them know of the situation, and they're willing to work with us on some of the bills that are still outstanding. And they know that we expect an insurance payment to come in approximately about $11 million here shortly. So they are working with us on those bills. And Tim, if you want to jump in here while I'm talking through the city safety requirements, please do so. So during our finance committee meeting, Tim joined that and he gave us an update on some of the city safety requirements. The city does require us to have fire walkers. We've talked about this before in the previous board meetings. So what John and Greg and team said we could do is maybe minimize some of those expenses by using our current maintenance staff to do some of the firewalking, but it is estimated to be a cost of about $50,000 per month. The shaft repairs from floors 1 through 8 and to add the rails and remove plastic is an estimate about $50,000. Obviously, we need this for the integrity of the building. We obviously don't want people to fall through those shafts, and we know that we've seen like holes around those areas previously. There are new exit signs on floors 1 through 8. They're about midway to the stairwell, and that's for overall safety concerns. Emergency lighting in the stairways are needed for floors 19 through 9. Again, that's for overall safety. If there were any, tragic incidences, obviously we want people to be able to exit the building in a safe manner. And we also want individuals to go up in a safe manner as well. We need an HVAC fan coil to maintain a proper temperature in the building, whether it's occupied or not. Whether, we want to make sure that the pipes don't freeze during the winter months and keep the temperature normalized. There is a request to add 40 additional smoke detectors. Obviously, that's for overall safety reasons. And then electrical wire safety. So on the floors that were demoed, there were wires hanging out of those units down. And so we went back to ensure that those wires were not live. And John, correct me if I'm wrong, that they cut the main breakers for each one of those units.
Yeah, it's a lockout procedure at the meter.
Perfect. All right. In this last slide, I wanted to share with everyone, because we've been getting a lot of questions and concerns around expenses. I wanted to share that the board and the finance committee and everyone has been looking at these cost saving ideas. And we're going to have a conversation about an exec committee, but we wanted to bring some of the things to you guys now. So from a cost decrease perspective, I just mentioned the TV and cable that we're going to review the contract and possibly decrease the bulk contract over time. Reduce ground maintenance. I talked about that already. Security staffing, reviewing that as well. Maybe there's no daytime, but those things are under consideration, especially when we talk about the things we need to do from a city perspective. We're reviewing staffing in general. Insurance, we're still in excess market and we're hoping to get that lowered. As you can see, from the previous slides, we actually had to take money from the reserve accounts to pay our insurance premium this month. So with the remaining $68,000 we had in the operating account, to be able to pay that and other smaller bills, we just did not have enough money to do that. So we had to pull money out of the account to pay that bill. So we did obviously not open the pool. That saved about $11,000 over the next 6 months. The electric is actually increasing as owners continue to have the electric move over to the bulk account. Obviously, that comes at a cost to the HOA. So in the month of March, it was about $2,000, very small number. The contingency fund reduction, so it's somewhere around 36,000. One of the suggestions was to maybe decrease that contingency fund. At this point, once all monies are viable at this point, I should say. Obviously, we would have to agree upon that, but the current situation we're in and not being able to continue to safely and securely operate the building is a concern, to not be able to have the funds to pay all the bills. We need to look at the interest expense. So we're spending about $19,000 year to date on that. We need to determine what that's tied to and if there's anything we can do there. Some of the finance committee also talked about, extermination. Could we reduce that? They come every other month. So we don't know what that'll look like, but we'll definitely look into it. Cleaning people, we'll look into that. Management fees is only about 25,000 year to date. So we can look into that. And then utilities obviously reduce over time as people continue to vacate the building. On the right-hand side of the slide is the current move-out schedule. Please, Tim Johnson, will chime in if I miscalculate here. So we currently have about 38 units occupied. I went through the move-out schedule and slightly calculated how many owners expect to move out in May, in June, and July. And I know that the rest of the owners are still looking for housing. And then that would be added to the schedule. For me personally, I just added mine to the schedule. I know it's very difficult to find housing with, a lot of the owners already moved and the individuals who need to move, especially for me with a family of 5 and 4, to be able to move somewhere, especially, I have a cat. So that is also taken under consideration. And then I looked at the original move out schedule, and it had the building being vacated by the end of July. So we are still in par with the original move out schedule. There has been, comments, whether it's in the chat or whether it's through email, like, why don't everyone just move out? Everyone just needs to go in like 30 days. Well, it's easier said than done. We, have to coordinate the move out schedule, obviously booking the elevators, getting movers in and out. And so we're following the same process we did before, with having people, sign up to say, hey, I found a place and I can move out in this month, which is quicker than what they've expected previously. So I just wanted to put that out there, that this is not just a pack up your things in 30 days and leave. And so we also mentioned on one of the board meetings that I think Tim and John and the city is working on, like, when could we let owners back in to retrieve their appliances and things like that. Obviously, there have to be a waiver for owners to come back into the building because the areas where they want to get some of their belongings from is under construction. There's still things up on the floors and there's still, crates and boxes and things that need to be torn apart and getting movers up there. So we'll hear more about that as we're prepared to do that. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. I know that was a lot. Jan, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. There are a couple more numbers that you didn't have, Tracy. That was a great report, all that you do. But trash and recycling have been reduced $1,300 a month. Exterminator savings is about 3,500 a year. And the TV and cable negotiations is a long and complicated issue. And I'm not gonna try and read that here, but it's, believe me, it's more than it appears. Because it's something that people often say, well, you know, what about this? And it is something we are working on. And John or Tracy, if you want to get into that more, you know, maybe we can do that next month. But we are definitely, we have our eye on it and we're talking to them. And it's a contract that goes, yes, for another year. So contracts are an issue.
Tim,
Tracy, can you put your second last slide back up?
Yes. This one?
it's not up yet.
The one before this.
All right, it's moving slow. Here we go. Is it this one? Or the one before this one here?
Yeah, that one. I just want to speak to some of those things on the city safety requirements. I had a meeting with Greg today and we talked about it. We have submitted some proposals to the city that says, as we make these improvements that they've asked for, can we please, or we would like to reduce the number of firewalkers in order to save us some money. They have not responded to that, so I asked Greg to get in contact with his contact, Specialist Peyton down at Cincinnati, and have him please come in the next few days so we can discuss what we need to do to reduce the expense on the firewalkers. Part of it is the shaft repairs, and they've already started doing that. They started putting the drywall up on the lower floors in order to comply with what the city wants. One of the things I also wanted to talk about is that there's been a lot of discussion about lowering our administrative staff. One of the things I want to communicate to everybody is we're using our guys to do things that TRS or Hunt would be doing, like tearing down the plastic before we put up the drywall. We're using our guys to do that. We're using our guys to do firewalking on the day shift. So we haven't been able to minimize that staff yet, but we're utilizing them to eliminate other people. So that's one of the other things I want to make sure that people knew about. And as we do some of these items that are on this safety checklist, hopefully we'll be able to get the city to agree to compromising on the firewalker situation. The other thing I wanted to address is I did talk to Greg today about Alta Fiber. It's a difficult contract right now, and I think we're going to have to. And I'm going to drop this on Greg because I haven't talked to him about it yet already. But I think we need to call a meeting with Alta Fiber and see what we can do to minimize that contract, minimize the impact of that contract as fast as we can. There's a question. Linda says, can everybody get their own cable? The problem is right now we have a contract that says we have to pay the bill that we signed up for until May the 7th of 2026. And if we cancel early, we still have to pay the bill. So that's why I'm saying that we have to get in there and negotiate something with Cincinnati, with Alta Fiber in order to reduce that commitment. Unfortunately, it's a difficult contract the way it's written right now.
let me also add something about this slide, which is the city safety requirements. There's an item, a high ticket item, 100 and I believe 70,000, which is to disconnect the electrical lines at the breaker box. that we got a cheaper solution for that. The $3,000 is a lockout tagout. Eventually that has to be done, but at least it gets access to the units. It's one of the elements of getting access. The residents want access to their units. And there were a few requirements Hunt talked about. One of them was electrical cutoff. So the list we have of anybody who wants to get into their unit above the 8th floor, that the electricity is now cut out in those units. Also, there are some units in the construction stage where there weren't railings put around every chase. So again, the priority units all now have railings around them. The last one was Hunt's waiver, and that we were at loggerheads with Hunt. We went to Isaac. He's talked to their lawyers. He thinks they can get that, make progress and get that. I can't promise you that it's going to happen, but it looks at a promise that it's our units. We own them and we should have access to them. Those are the 3 elements we need so owners can get access to their units. The last one, which we're not dealing with quite yet, is the appliances are either where they were wrapped in plastic or they're in this sort of like crate that they made out of 2x4s in plastic. And if it's inside that, it gets a little more complicated, but we think we can get through that again with the maintenance staff. Tracy, do you have something else you want to say? And okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Now, I was just gonna say, a copy of this presentation will be saved with the notes and out on the site, so people can look through it. So the main message that I wanted to share with the owners is that everyone, we're all facing difficult times right now, and I understand that we are looking and we need to cut expenses. But as you can see on the right-hand side of this presentation, a lot of these are just upkeep expenses. There's not a whole lot of fluff in here. These are things that we have to have. These are things that we're leveraging to reduce somewhere else. So I just want to share that. I know that, if you're not intimately involved in all the numbers, you can't see exactly what we're paying for, but I just want to share, like, here it is. And if you have any questions, please let us know. But it's just as simple as this, right? So each month we are running very short on our net operating expenses. And again, I mentioned that we had to pull some money to pay for the large insurance bill that we have each month. And again, I know that people were looking for, hey, how do we lower our HOA? How do we lower our HOA expenses? It will come over time with these large amounts of things like utility and maintenance, where it's the bulk of keeping up with the building. And as we continue to empty the building, it'll start to trickle off on its own. So I just wanted to share that because we've been getting so many comments and questions about what we can do. As well as, has the finance committee been meeting? We did pause for a couple of weeks to get through the petition action. But now that that's underway, again, we met on Friday and I've added everything in here that we were discussing, and to show some of the things we've already done. So we have already been working on this. I just wanted everyone, feel a little more comfortable about that. And if there's any other ideas that you may have or things you think we haven't considered, please shoot us an email, and then we will consider that.
Tim?
The other thing I want, since Tracy brought this slide back up, the other thing that I guess I want to let people know is that the board has divided up the Hammond by floor, and we have contacted everybody on each floor to try to encourage them to get out as quickly as possible and to give us a date and to get an elevator reserved and get the dock reserved. So we have individually contacted the people on every floor, as far as I know, to encourage them to get out and give us a date. It's important for us to get people out, and it's important for us to keep the city involved to let them know that we are making constant progress towards getting everybody out of the building.
Jan?
Dan, you're on mute. There we go.
Okay, yeah, I know, it's not, it's not me muting myself. Um, I just wanted to mention that the Building and Grounds Committee worked on this also and came up with a few of these items. And were really helpful, so I appreciate that.
Any other questions from board members? We'll move on to owners. So, Michelle?
So thank you for this information, very helpful. A couple of quick things. I plan to write to Alta Fiber. I plan to write to the CEO of their company and tell them that this is a really awful thing they're doing to a community that's been devastated. And I strongly urge everybody who is suffering to write to the CEO and tell them what a crap decision that is, to hold us to a contract in the face of these awful financial situations for everybody in our community. Tracy, did you say that, has that 11 million been guaranteed? Are we definitely getting $11 million? And I have a follow-up to that.
John, did you want to speak to that?
This is a hot potato. Michelle, we've all the owners, we've been through what Landmark has said and promised. They think they're working on it, that was a recommendation from the Landmark adjuster to Landmark higher up. Have we seen the paperwork that says it's all approved? No. Until I see the check in hand, I don't know what Landmark's going to do.
And what is the remaining? Yeah, what is the remaining amount? What's the maximum amount? Isn't it more than 11?
Oh, yes. That leaves another 11 million out there.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Right.
So,
yes.
And here's my follow-up question to that. If we do get a check for $11 million from Landmark, can some of that money be used to lower condo fees? Because at this point, it becomes a shell game, right? That money is either going to be set aside for us to get later, or we can use it to reduce fees now and get people out of this mess and try to get people to continue. Do you get what I'm saying?
Oh, yes. In fact, I've thought the same thing. And it's a good question. We got to double check the legal, and which is basically if we can use the insurance money or the interest from it to pay any of the expenses that Tracy went through that significantly, because we've got to remember the first slide had, the increased amounts of the income and the expenses. But if we can use it for the expenses, that's great. But also remember on this, that there's a 95,000 for January, February, March variance of 3 months, but the budget started in July. And there's been a variance from the beginning. I think we're up to about 200,000 at least that we have not received through the fees.
I get that. I mean, because then the last thing I'll say is just, there is going to be, for all owners, there's going to be no way to make this fair for people. There's just not. This is what it is, because for those of us who have been out and paying our fees for 2 or 3 years, we're all out $25,000, $30,000 that we're never going to see again. So we're out money that people who had the privilege of remaining in the building aren't out. And so I think it's important for everybody to remember there's no winners in this. Everybody's suffering. And if there's any way people can sign on to sell this via broker, that would be the way to go, because people need to move on with their lives. I know we do. And I just hope that everybody can come together so we can make this happen as quickly as possible for the benefit of all owners. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Greg?
Thanks, John. If I could just kind of clarify without going into a whole lot of detail regarding Alta Fiber, they are planning to release us from contractual obligations after everyone has moved out. We have been rebated in excess of 25,000 in the last year already. They were committed to provide additional rebates when the initial plan was floors to move out and then move back in. Once all that was to take place, then they were going to assess the gap in usage and then provide an additional rebate. Now that everyone has to move out, they're going to go through and cut out the monthly bulk arrangement now. They could stand by that, but because of the relationship and because they understand the situation, they're going to do that. But there's other legal things involved with the amount of equipment and assets they have in the building. They need to wait until everyone is moved out before they can provide those rebates and provide that saving to us. So I'd like to have it now. I was pushing to have it earlier. It's been a long drawn out conversation, and certainly we're welcome to set up additional meetings if we think that'll help maybe push it a little quicker. But they are doing that. So it's not like they're going to hold us through another 12 months of contractual obligation. So, I kind of had to push the force majeure issue with them, and they recognize that now. And so they are attempting to work with us. They just need a little bit more time.
Greg,
Tim.
quick question. I'm sorry, quick question. What do owners do with the equipment? So if they take the equipment with them, or if they have it stored somewhere, where should they put that?
They bring it to the office. That's how we've been closing out the account by unit. And that way the owner doesn't have to go to a local store. That was to attempt to help. So once we receive that equipment, we communicate with our reps at Alta Fiber that the unit's been vacated and the equipment's been turned in, and then they close the account. And we were also using that from a timing standpoint, so we would understand what the gaps were in usage for all the various units from the times that they were actually out of the building. I meant.
Tim.
Greg, I apologize for not being as clear as I should have been on what you've done already. So I apologize, and I appreciate what you've done already. I just know it's been a hot topic with the ownership. The other thing is, that's talking about the $11 million insurance settlement. That's one of the things that I've been pushing very hard, is because we need to collect that money. I mean, we could be earning 4% interest on that $11 million, which would really help with some of the expenses that we're going through right now. So I guess I didn't make the meeting on Wednesday, but from what I heard, it sounded like it was the most optimistic discussion that we've had so far. So I just we will push and push and push still to get that money for us.
David.
Unmuting here. Okay. I was curious a little bit more about the insurance. We have made claims for over $22 million. What are they saying is wrong with our claims that they're not settling this?
What I understand from the rebuild meetings that nickel and diming us, they're saying that something has been sent to them. It has been sent to them, the adjusters, they haven't opened the file. There's been an arrangement. They would pay for something. They go back on that arrangement, so we're not going to pay it. It's been dragging it out forever. I think basically the game is, are we going to buckle under or are they going to buckle under? But they're dragging out forever. We've had Isaac Heinz involved, our lawyer, in one of those meetings. If have to, we have to do that again. The bottom line is we'd like to avoid suing them. Everybody digs in their feet and gets harder to move anything. But if we have to, if we're not going to get the rest of the $11 million, we have to consider doing that.
David, it's basically a business decision. The longer they can hold on to the money, the better they like it. And that they have come up with 1,000 excuses. I mean, we've only been involved in this for about 6 or 8 weeks, and it's amazing the amount of excuses that they've been able to come up with in those 6 or 8 weeks why not to pay us. We ask them, they ask for something, we give it to them. They say they didn't get it. They say it doesn't explain enough. Then they want some more. Their basic line is they are slow walking this as much as they can to keep from paying out that big settlement.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, let me add one other thing, which is a little bit off topic, but similar in terms of the insurance for the building, not the insurance claim, and being in the excess market, which is I've had discussions with the Driehaus company, and I've emphasized that we don't need insurance more than $10 million. That was the appraised value of the building. And that's the better news. The bad news is, if you look back at what we paid for premiums a year ago, there are various layers. And that if you have a smaller claim, you only penetrate and get into the first layer, then the second, the third. We went all the way top to all of it, 55 million. What happens is, in getting that first $10 million of insurance is over half the insurance premium cost. So over $500 million. So
500,000.
hopefully we'll get $400,000 lower. We're about, I think, 900,000 more, maybe closer to $1 million. So that money would be clearly a big savings come July 1st if we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Okay, so let's move on to the
John,
status.
there's a question in the chat. Why can't we sue Landmark now?
Well,
I'm answering that question.
I mean, we could, and I'm sure that if we do, it'll certainly drag out for a long time. If we get to $11 million, that's a different situation. Let's see what they say. We've already asked them for much more than the $55 million. I mean, if they say $1 million here, $1 million there, they're not going to pay us for, but we have the same amount of money already claimed in excess. I've heard the estimate of 65 to 70 million dollars in what we've asked for, then we should be able to get it. But until we know what they actually are paying us for, which comes along with the $11 million claim, that's the only way we're going to know what they aren't paying. So with that, let's move on then to the next item, which I have is a status of approved safety items, the list from Art Dolberg. And I think, Tim, that's you and Greg want to review that, or Greg, you're more on top of those items.
Well, one of the updates, we've been working on the required additional smoke heads to be installed per the city and fire department's directive. We did replace 3 defective smoke heads that were damaged, during the construction process. So that was one of the ticket items. Then the additional installs that they're asking for, we're trying to phase this in, hoping that we can save a little money rather than do everything at once. So starting Thursday, possibly may go to Friday, but starting the end of this week, we're going to start installing those additional smoke heads that they're requiring us to install. We're going to install those from the 7th floor down to the 1st floor. And we're going to start on the 7th floor and work our way down to 6 and 5. So right now, the board has approved in the first phase to do 3 floors, which is about, I think it's 12 smoke heads, and it ties the sprinkler system that was installed on the top 3 floors, as well as these new smoke heads. It ties them into the fire panel and the fire pump. So we're able to do that for half of the initial quote anyway. So that's going to start towards the latter part of this week. The other part, which we've already talked about, is the ongoing requirement for the fire watch. I reached out to Specialist Peyton today. I did not hear back, and I offered to have either a Zoom in-person or Teams meeting, and if possible, could we hold that this week? So I'll keep everyone posted on once I hear back from Specialist Peyton. If I don't hear back from him tomorrow, I'll continue to call. That's what I have at the moment. Tim, do you have anything else to add?
Can't hear you, Tim, for some reason. Okay, we lost the audio. Let me also reiterate that the items when Greg is saying certain floors and the PowerPoint that Tracy went over, that's because we didn't want to approve 100% given the financial situation of each one of those items. Some of them are pretty expensive. The $50,000 item, I think, was more than twice that amount. But we wanted to get going because if the fire inspectors, if the city had come in and looked and seen we weren't doing anything, it would have been a bad situation. I think everybody would have had to move out immediately. And if we get the $11 million, then we'll be able to fund all that. So any questions about the safety items that were showed on the screen earlier? So let's move on to the hallway scrubber update. Tom, do you want to give a report on that? Let's unmute, make sure you're unmuted.
Okay, thanks, John. Okay, on the hallway monitors or those air scrubbers, back in March, we were kind of questioning how effective these are and really wanted to know how much good they were doing for us. So we met with Mac Paran, and the reason we chose Mac Paran is they know the building, plus they've been monitoring air quality in the building during the deconstruction process. And we met with them and came up with some type of a plan whereby we would sample for things like asbestos, char, ash, and carbon soot. And then during the discussion, we decided, well, we felt that maybe 3 floors, floor 3, 5, and 7 would be the ones we would focus on. So the plan is to to shut these air scrubbers off during the weekend, and then sample on Monday morning, then turn the scrubbers back on. And then on Wednesday, sample again with the scrubbers running. So we got results on that. And on the asbestos end, we had non-detect was the lab reading on asbestos. And what we found what I got in the letter from Mac Paran, and here's what they said, I'm reading from their letter. They determined that there is no significant difference between char, ash, and carbon soot concentrations with the scrubbers in operation versus the scrubbers turned off. So after that, John, you, Tim, Larry Bloomfield, and we talked about this and kind of felt that that's what the data does show. And I have a motion to make about that, but if this is not the right time, I can hold off.
I'm not sure on that one. I think let's do it after we do all the reports.
Okay, not a problem. And that's pretty much the end of the monitoring that we did on air quality.
Yep. Okay, then the next one is waiver of reserve fund and budget to reduce HOA fees. Basically, as far as I understand, and I haven't looked at the bylaws the last 24 hours about this, it's mandated in the declarations, I believe, we have to give a certain percentage of the budget has to go into the reserve funds. We're looking into waiving that. However, waiving that is something I alluded to earlier, requires another 75% vote of the owners to change the declarations. We don't want to wait until we have a vote on the 100% to sale. And basically, we're calling on volunteers, both the board and owners, to form a small committee that figure out how can we operate more than one election at the same time, one vote at the same time. We don't want to wait on that. We want to decrease our costs. So we're going to talk to Isaac about that. We got to get him to draft something up. He knows what sections we're talking about and try to reduce our fees that way. Any questions? Yeah, Randy.
Yeah, John's referring to bylaws section 7.1, and the percentage is 15%. 15% of the budget must be put into a reserve fund, and the vote would be to change that in the bylaws so that we don't have to do that, and that would give us then 15% more money to pay bills with and operate on.
Thanks, Randy. Jan?
But this, John, you and I were talking about this morning, and maybe, well, it wouldn't automatically go towards HOA fee reduction. I mean, it would, right? I mean,
It would go into the mix of decreasing our expenses.
right.
And then you have to make a decision whether it's this item or any other item as to whether that means how much we can reduce fees, if we can reduce fees.
Right.
Basically, if we reduce the fees by arbitrarily, say $50,000, but there's $50,000 that we're losing in decreased income and owner fees, then that doesn't give us justification or a reason to cut the fees.
Yep, at this point, from my perspective, all monies are a pool of money. Yes, we need to vote on it, but at this point, it's a matter of survival, right? So before we talk about reducing fees, we need to be able to pay our operating expenses. And we fell short here recently. We're banking on this $11 million that the insurance is supposed to send, we're saying in the next week or so. But right now in the reserves, we only have $52,000. And we have, again, $1.5 million of outstanding invoices that we cannot pay right now. So when we talk about the reserve fund, I think instead of talking about fees, I think we really need to focus on how do we pay our bills. Because the last thing we want is a lien to be placed on the property. The last thing we will want is creditors coming after us, because now we're talking about dipping into the potential payouts of owners or potentially reducing the reserve funds that we're supposed to get to pay regular operating costs.
Any other questions on this? All right, the last item I had was an update on the fire watch. That's you, Greg, I think.
Well, it's been mentioned a couple times already, but just to kind of share with everyone the impact to our financial situation to date is, as of this weekend, and this is including the sales tax on the cost involved, but as of yesterday, we have expensed in excess of $61,000 to date for the fire watch. That's the other reason that we're reaching out to Specialist Peyton with the fire department and make an appeal and show him that certain things have already been completed. That was brought up during the walkthrough with the city and the fire department. There's other things that we have scheduled or in the process of completing, and we're asking for some consideration with the city. And supposedly this is a new procedure with the fire department. So, our misfortune that we happen to be the ones that are being subjected to that. We made the argument up front, and we were told basically our fire system is defective simply because we have not installed the sprinkler system, and the sprinkler system that has been installed in the top 3 floors isn't tied to the panel or isn't tied to the fire pump. So we're going to ask him to come in and so we can show him what's been done and see what kind of reprieve we can get on this expectation with the fire watch. So hopefully sooner than later. That's really all I have, John, unless there's any questions.
Any questions? Well, then I think that covers the agenda that we have. Randy?
Yes, Tom, is he going to be able to make that motion before we adjourn?
Oh, yes. Before we adjourn, we should. Tom, you want to make the motion about the scrubbers? Yeah, we got to unmute you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I got my grandson over here and he's making a lot of noise in the house.
Understand.
So regarding the results from the Mac Paran's report, I would like to make a motion that we turn off and remove those hallway air scrubbers.
I second.
Any discussion?
Really quick, Tom. Do you know what the cost of the scrubber and the removers will be? Like, how much will we save for it? Do
Well,
you know that?
I can't tell you an exact cost on that because they're wrapped up in the contract with all I believe with the bypass fans.
Okay.
But what we do save immediately is people checking those units every day from TRS, and we save the electricity to run them.
Great.
Let me elaborate on it a little bit more.
Yes.
Jan, you have a question?
Well, no, I wanted to elaborate also.
Which is basically that what we found out in the rebuild meeting last week, we asked, after talking about the scrubbers, that we were doing the sampling, removing them, we found out that there was some arrangement that TRS had for the cost of the fans that averaged the cost of the fans since the beginning of the project. And they were saying that we had to pay for the fans, I think, for another 2 or 3 months. We asked for them to put that in writing. I asked them an email saying, you know, what's going on with that? And what Tom said, the scrubber, the bypass ventilation fans. So people should be clear that I think it's the 7th floor has the bypass ventilation fans. That's the fans that certainly for the west side of the building are the 04 and the 06, 05 units. They're the only fans that provide ventilation for the bathroom and the kitchens, and partially for any of the units that people are living in. So what the motion is, the scrubbers that are in the hallway that we were testing, as Tom said, what goes in, what comes out, and basically it really wasn't much difference. So the follow-up on that, we'll find out what we say on what happens on Wednesday at the rebuild meeting. But basically, I see no reason. It has in it, yes, to month 32, but it said when the project is ended. My position, I think the board's position is the TRS's work on remediation and demolition ended when they finished the 9th floor. And in February, we came in, the status I understood was they're doing clearing testing on 9. I don't believe there was any more demolition that happened once we passed the motion on February 6th for no more demolition. Whether we actually get a savings for the fans, we'll see. As we said, for the staffing going around, we won't have to have that. And the board has also talked about in the rebuild meeting that we could easily have the fire watch check on the bypass fans that they're plugged in. So there's no reason to fund anybody else to do that. So to be continued, and we'll find out how much we can save from that.
Thanks.
Anything else from the board? Okay, Mick,
Did
can
we
we
vote?
silence, unmute
We'll
Mick?
finish the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Yeah, Mick, hang on a second. We should do the motion. Yeah, we should do the motion. Let's do the motion, then have discussion. Any other discussion for the board members? All right. All those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous? All right, all those, it's unanimous. Okay, the motion passes, and we'll post that. That'll be in the minutes. Okay, Mick, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I'm hearkening back to what Stacy said earlier. And then, you know, she emphasized the need to meet operating expenses. But with her scenario of the most likeliest procedure we're going to be following is the partition process, which she said, if it does take 2 years, there's not a very likely prospect of our being able to get any proceeds back. So hearing that as owners, don't you anticipate a hemorrhaging of condo payments unless we can get all hands on deck with this broker procedure where we need 180 people to come forward and say we want to go that route? I am pessimistic about operating expenses going to be met given the scenario where we're not going to get any proceeds, like if we have to go through the partition process. So, I mean, how are we going to be meeting the operating expenses if that likely scenario develops and people anticipate it and stop paying their condo fees? Thank you.
Yes, that is you're absolutely right. Which is why I shared, you know, the decrease of fees we've been seeing as well as the delinquencies we've been seeing. and wanted to show that these operating expenses, they're not fluff, right? So these are basic things we need for the building. And if the long drawn partition action is the route we have to go down, you're absolutely right. We still have to pay insurance. We still need to have like repairs done to the building. So it still will require some form of fees in order to maintain the building for the next 2 years to go through the partition action. It will be a lot less, but there still will be the need to operate the building even if everyone has moved out. We still need to keep the building warm in the summer or in the winter times. We still need to, have plumbing repairs if something breaks. So all of those things are still true. And you're absolutely right that we need to move quickly to sell the building. Again, we're gonna hopefully, stand up this committee that was discussed earlier to try to get everyone to sign up for the quick sale. But the fact that we haven't gotten 180 unit owners to even sign off on a partition is very concerning. Because now we're saying, we want to do this quickly, which if those owners who did not sign up, know that, which we talked about it, they would have done so. So I encourage everyone to sign the quick sale document. Instead of it being 2 years, maybe it can be 6 months, right? For the good of the entire community.
Any other comments or questions?
The last comment I will make, sorry, John, the last comment I will make is that regardless of which route we head down, we need to ensure that all the litigation cease and desist, because we will not be able to get any funding back to the owners. We cannot hand out any funding if we do sell, and the building will not be sold. You cannot close with pending litigation. So regardless of which path we head down, that will be helpful and to stop the bleeding of legal expenses.
Joan?
John, you did not answer. I had asked you a question last week about the question of people involved in the lawsuit. Could they sign the partition agreement? You never got back to me.
Yeah, that's twofold. And I could have mentioned earlier with the partition. One is, and I think there's agreement on all sides of all the lawyers involved in these cases, is that whether you are being sued or whether you're suing the board, that it's inappropriate to either fill out the form or that's the last check we're doing with Finney, which is if people have signed the form, that they'll remove them. But I believe your question was more pointed, and I did email Finney for it, and thanks for the reminder, because I did not get an answer from this, which was, can people who were sued, who were on the board, can we file the petition form for Jan? I mean, we're being sued, and can we fill out the petition form? I've not got an answer from that. It's a good question, and we'll try to find out. Randy?
Yes, well, I was going to mention that earlier, but yeah, the reason that people involved in other litigation cannot become plaintiffs in the partition action, it's not our rule. It's a conflict. It would be a conflict for the Finney law firm if they are engaged with you in some other matter. Then they couldn't very well represent you in this one. It would be a conflict of interest for them. That's not so bad as it sounds. If you understand this, we call this it's a lawsuit, a partition action. We have to go through this. It's almost a charade of having plaintiffs and defendants. We have to do that just to get it in front of the court. As we mentioned before, we're all in this together. It doesn't matter if you're named as a defendant or as a plaintiff. Nobody wins, nobody loses. We all get the same amount of money. Yeah, it would be nice to have everybody be able to get on board, but because of the conflict of interest with the law firm, if they have to argue against you in court on some other matter, then they can't very well argue for you in court on this matter. So that's what that's about.
Is there
And
any
in answer-
possibility that it could also affect if we all sign on to do a direct sale? Because we would still have Finney as the lawyer handling that.
I think that's a very different situation, because that is 100% of the lawyers, of the owners saying they want to sell. It's
Right.
not a matter of a lawsuit, anybody against anybody else. Let me also say, I think your question also was, and I think they'll probably say it's fine for you and me, for Jan to sign the petition, is that they're representing us, the board. They're not in a lawsuit, not representing any of us. So it shouldn't be a conflict. That's different than people who are suing the board. Or there
Okay,
were
but we
some.
also can't settle, we can't do a final sale on the building while there's outstanding litigation. And we
Right.
still have, we'll have Finney and D&O insurance and stuff representing us. So you better check with them and make sure that isn't also a possibility. Because that would affect your getting 180 signatures. I would just double check.
That's the point well taken. I think we would do that. We do need 180, or we can't sell it outside the partition action at all. So I don't see how they can say that a litigant can't agree to sell the building. But yeah, we will double check with them on that.
From what she mentioned in the meeting we had last week with her, per the Ohio law, we just need all owners to sign up to sell. It was just all or nothing, right, with the direct sale,
Right.
because it's not going in front of the court. It's just they sell, you get a broker, you market, you sell the building.
Any other questions? Comments? All right. Well, thank you everybody for your time, and we're going to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make the motion to adjourn the board meeting.
Okay. Well, all those in favor? Okay. We'll all sign off and we'll come back on for the executive session. Thank you.